Hello and welcome back to the Cupcake Jemma channel with me, Gemma. And it's Easter time, which means it's time to get some Eastery treats. Now today I'm going to be doing a mashup of two of the best bakes, hot cross buns and cinnamon rolls, to create hot cross rolls, which are going to be a fluffy, spiced dough packed full of juicy packed full of juicy dried fruits and currants and mixed peel, and then filled with a lovely spicy buttery filling, topped with apricot jam glaze, and then topped again with a bit of cream cheese icing for that cinnamon roll vibe. And they are so delicious. They're really, really good. I've made them a couple of times now. And actually, Eden was asking me for hot cross buns this morning for breakfast, and I didn't have any, so this is quite good. Then I can come home and get in her favour, so I don't have a tantrum to deal with. It's classic enriched dough, which means that it's enriched with things like butter and egg and milk, or all of those things in this case. And the first thing we need to do is just get our milky, wet ingredients to the right temperature. So I have some milk here, which is just going in a pan along with some water, and all the measurements are in the description box below. I also have some butter. It doesn't matter what temperature this is, and I'm gonna pop that onto the hob just on a low temperature, and I want it to get to 55 degrees C, which is obviously quite specific. I do have my trusty thermometer here, so make sure you're using one. But if you don't have one of those, then it's just kind of, well, is it body temperature? No, it's a bit warmer than body temperature. There you go, a nice warm bath. Do keep an eye on it so it doesn't get too hot. I'm going to mix my dry ingredients together. So I have strong white bread flour here. You can use plain flour if you don't have strong bread flour, but it will just be a little bit less glutinous, because that's one of the best things about the strong flour. We've also got a teaspoon of salt. Use sea salt if you can, and then just add your caster sugar. I'm also going to be putting in half a teaspoon of cinnamon and then 1.5 teaspoons of mixed spice, and that has things like cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg and cloves in it. Next, we also need to put yeast in, and I'm going to be using instant yeast here, 7 grams of that, because that doesn't need to be activated, but if you have a different kind of yeast, just follow the instructions on the packet. And then you can either whisk that together with a whisk or just pop it onto a low speed with your dough hook on your mixer. Lovely, so yep, that's ready. 55 degrees. So I'm just gonna pour that directly into the mixer while the dough hook's still going around. And it should start to form a dough. And then when the dough starts looking a bit shaggy, you can add your egg. Just crack it straight in and then let it mix away. And then you want to increase the speed to a medium-high speed to really work that dough. Start to develop the gluten, and eventually, after a few minutes, it should start to come away from the sides of the bowl. Well, if your mixer hasn't jumped off the counter with all that flinging itself about, then brilliant. And hopefully it will start to be coming away from the sides. And when it does, it's time to put the fruit in. So I have a mixture. I actually bought this ready mix from the supermarket. Here in Britain, hot cross buns and mince pies are a thing. So this has a mixture of sultanas, raisins, currants, and mixed peel, which gives hot cross buns a really distinctive flavour. So I have 175 grams of that. So if you can't find the mixed version, then just make up your mixture however you want. Doesn't have to be even, just do whatever you like. Anyway, pop that in. And then just get that dough hook going around again on a low-medium speed, just to ease the fruits into the dough. It might struggle a little bit at first, but eventually they'll work their way through it. Lovely, right, everything's rattling on the counter here, so I think it's time to get this guy out of here. So as you can see, it's mostly distributed, but we're going to need it a little bit to just help finish that off, and it's a really nice temperature, which is going to help the yeast start to activate. And I'm going to start by putting it onto a not floured surface, just because I don't want to add too much flour unnecessarily, because what I'm going to do is slaps and folds, and I don't know if you've ever made like a sourdough. It's this motion. You can knead it if you prefer, but you might need a little bit of flour on that. But all I'm doing is picking it up, slapping it down onto the counter, and then folding it over itself, and then rotating it and doing the same thing again. So I'm turning it and folding it every single time. And what that's going to do is help to develop the gluten even further to give it a really nice texture. Also redistribute any uneven bits of mixed fruit. If any ping out, just tuck them in again, and then just keep doing that until you have a nice smooth round blob. I think that's enough. Also, everything's rattling here. I don't know if you can hear that. So I'm going to put it into a lightly greased bowl. Obviously greased because dough is really sticky and we don't want it to stick to the bowl. And I'm going to put that into a warm place. I like to lightly cover mine with cling film, but you can use a shower cap, some people do that, or a tea towel if you like. The main thing is it needs to go into sort of a nice cozy place. Now I don't want to say warm because you don't want to be putting it by an open fire and getting too hot. We need to prove it, and what that's going to mean is that all the yeast starts to do its thing. It needs warmth to do that, and it will get nearly double in size. Find a nice spot. I have a defrost setting on my oven in the other room, which is about 30 or 40 degrees, so I'm going to put it in there. If you want to cheat it, you can just put a bit of boiling water in a tray at the bottom of your oven and then whack it in there and shut the door, but whatever works for you. Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a bit of information about our Bake Club over on Patreon. It is a paid-for membership, and we do really appreciate everyone who joins up because it really does help to support the channel. So there is the standard membership, which is Bake Club, $5.99 a month, and you get all sorts of great stuff. You get behind-the-scenes content, you get archive recipes and downloadable PDF versions of those, as well as all the ones we upload once a week. Direct message me and Dane and Nikki. You can comment on all the posts, and also you can get access to our live bake-alongs, which we do every few weeks. You're in your kitchen, I'm in mine. I'm helping, you're asking questions. If you don't want to commit to $5.99 a month, you can still support the channel for less than the price of a coffee. So for $1.99 a month, you can join Bake Club Lite. But if you're an absolute mega fan and you love cookies, and if you're in this country, you can join the Cookie Club. Monthly New York cookies delivered to your door. You get 6 every month for the snip of $25.99. A great deal of money, but hopefully we make it worth your while with cookies and content. If you want to join the Bake Club, head to patreon.com/Cupcake Jemma, and we are grateful to you. So do that, please. Okay, while your dough is proving in its cozy little spot, you can get on with making the filling. You're gonna need some soft butter. This has been sitting out in the open air, so it's squeezably soft. I'm gonna put that into a bowl. And then I'm adding some light brown sugar, along with 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of mixed spice. And then just using a spatula or a wooden spoon, just press that all together. You can do this with your hands if you want. The warmth from your hands will help to sort of soften the butter and squish it all together, whichever way you like. So you just need to leave that until you're ready to use it, but don't put it anywhere too cold, guys, because otherwise it won't be spreadable anymore. Right. That is looking poofy. It's been in its warm spot for about an hour, and it has grown almost double in size, and it's really nice and sort of floofy. It's got some bubbles going on as well. So I'm going to just dust my worktop first of all, because I don't want to get this stuck, because we're going to roll it out now to a nice rectangular shape. Whoop. Oh, that did a nice little backflip as well. Brilliant. So to start with, before I start rolling, I'm just going to kind of tease it into a rough square or rectangle shape just by sort of pulling it. That way I'm not, as I roll, I'm not kind of fighting against a circle shape. And once you have a rough rectangle, you can start rolling. So make sure you dust your rolling pin with plenty of flour. And what we're aiming for is a rectangle that's roughly 10 or 12 inches by 15 to 17 inches. If you feel like it's getting a little bit sticky every now and then, just make sure you redust that worktop underneath the dough, just to make sure it doesn't stick and stretch. Right, so once you have your rectangle shape, I mean obviously it's not completely rectangular, unless you're, I don't know, amazing at rolling. You can fill it with your filling. So make sure that your filling is nice and spreadable. See, this one's lovely and soft. I'm just using a palette knife. because that's easiest, but a rubber spatula would work. You just want to be careful. So I'm going to start spreading it really gently. I don't want to drag the dough too much. And I'm not going to go to the very, very ends because I'm going to cut these sides off anyway because they're going to be all sort of raggedy. But go as close as you feel comfortable. And then once you have completely covered your dough, it's time to roll it up. That's very satisfying. But now we need to roll it up into a lovely roll. That's really it. Sausage, log, what are we calling it? A sausage. So once you've rolled it into its nice little sausage shape, just give it a little kind of rock back and forth, while at the same time just really gently pulling. That's going to help elongate it and also just even it out. When you've done that, you need to chop those raggedy ends off. So grab yourself a sharp knife and just chop as much as you're willing to lose. You can then divide it into your little rounds. So I reckon I can get about 9 pieces. It will depend a little bit on how long your sausage is, but make sure they're all the same size. Just use a sharp knife, draw it across the top gently and then chomp down. You can then put them into a tin to have their second proof. So they are going to grow up a little bit. Grow up. They're going to really come of age. And I have got a square one here. You want to give them a little bit of room to puff up. And so they shouldn't be too close to each other. Right, with them all nicely spaced out, they do need to have their second proof. So cover it again, either with your cling film or a tea towel, whichever you prefer, and put them back into the warm place for anywhere between half an hour to an hour. Check them every now and then with your finger, just give them a little poke. The dough should spring back nicely. It shouldn't just poke and then just your finger just stays there. And then, yes, they'll be ready to bake. Ooh. These have had about 30 minutes in the warm place, my secret warm place, and they're lovely and plump. They've plumped up enough so that they're now sort of touching, and they will also do that a little bit more in the oven, but also, crucially, they still bounce back a little bit when I touch them with my finger. So they are nicely proved, I think. I'm going to bake these at 170 degrees C for 25 to 30 minutes. They probably will need more like 30, but I'm going to check them at 25, and if it looks like they're getting a bit brown on top, I'm going to put a bit of foil over it so they don't get any more brown. But goodbye, sweet little rolls. Woo! Right, let's have a wee look and see how our rolls are doing. Now, as you can see, I put the tin foil over them because I had a little peep and they were looking a little bit on the brown side, but these look great. So I'm just giving them a little poke on the insidey bits just to make sure that it's not raw dough in there. So what do we need to do next? Well, first of all, we need to glaze these with a bit of apricot jam. Now, you can heat your apricot jam if you want. Mine's actually, to be honest, I put this in the blender because it was a really lumpy one. And I had like huge bits of apricot. It was very good quality, but not very good for brushing. But as you can see, mine's already quite loose. And I'm gonna brush it on while they're still really hot to give them a nice shiny glaze. They look so good and shiny and glossy and delicious and really squishy as well. But we're not done yet. They're still really hot, so while they're cooling down, I'm gonna make the cream cheese icing, which is a little bit like our cream cheese icing that we put on cupcakes, but it's a bit thinner, a bit looser. And if you wanted to, you could make it now and put it on your rolls while they're still warm. That would be really nice, but I'm gonna do something slightly different with them. But I'm gonna make it in the normal way. So I'm gonna start by putting my butter in. It's a really small amount of butter because it's a really small amount of icing, along with room temperature cream cheese. And then just get that beating. I'm just using a hand mixer for this. Just beat those together for a minute or two, just till they're really, really well combined. Once that's lovely and whippy, you can add your icing sugar. I like to do this in 2 stages, beating really well in between each stage. But at some point, stick a little pinch of sea salt in there and also about ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract. Guys, they're out of their tin. They're squishy and I love them, but they're not finished yet because I'm gonna put a cross of cream cheese on. So as I said, when you make this, if you want to put it on all over, just in the style of a classic cinnamon roll, then do that when they're still warm and it will all sort of sink in and be delicious. But because I wanted these to be hot cross rolls, well, they're not a hot cross roll if they don't have a cross on them. So I've put my cream cheese icing into a piping bag and I'm not gonna even need half of this. which means you get to have a little extra cream cheese, just by the spoonful perhaps, but just gently squeeze out nice, neat lines going across all of your buns, vertically and horizontally. Because you know what, it's actually a lot lighter than it looks. It looks like it might weigh a ton, but actually it's really nice and light, which means I've proved my dough right and it's gonna be really squishy. Look at this. And it's actually still a little bit warm, so I'm quite excited about this. Look at that. So lovely and soft, perfectly spiced, got a really, really delicious fruity tang from all that fruit in there. And the cream cheese icing, I didn't actually get a lot in that mouthful, which is another good reason why you should just spread it all over. Once you've done the cross and you've seen it, just spread it all over so you can get a bit of it in each mouthful. But that is so delicious. I'm gonna say it, better than a cinnamon roll. And why should it just be for Easter? Why not make this all year round, guys? And if you make it, please let me know. Take your pictures, put them on Cupcake Jemma, Instagram, hashtag me Cupcake Jemma. If you're a Bake Club member, you can put it in the chat, the bake chat, and I will respond. Thank you so much for watching. And in the meantime, happy Easter. I hope you have lots of fun and get lots of eggs and eat loads of these. Oh. I was going to take another bite, but I've got my mouth full already. I'm just so keen.